Justin Trudeau wants progressives to think that there's no alternative but him. Here's why that cynical brand of politics is wrong. Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by again. So if you saw yesterday, Justin Trudeau went to the Canadian Teachers Federation and he spoke to a convention, a room full of teachers. And he basically said to them that despite all of his broken promises and limitations and his right-wing policies from time to time, he is the only progressive choice, and that if progressives reject him, the only alternative is Andrew Scheer. And so that despite all Trudeau's flaws, we can't do any better than him, and we shouldn't bother trying. And this is the main electoral tactic you're going to see from Trudeau, and from his party, and from liberals on social media. It's nothing more than an attempt to stamp down anybody who dare vote Green or NDP or Bloc or whoever else. That if you vote for those parties, you're voting for Andrew Scheer. And it's not going to be about, did the Liberals actually keep their promise? Are they all that different from Conservatives on many key issues? Are Justin Trudeau's promises this time worth even less than they were in 2015, given his penchant for breaking them? None of that matters. All that matters is he's not Andrew Scheer, and you have to vote for him. And if you don't, you're electing Conservatives. That's all the Liberals have this time. As I've noted in other videos, it's a form of electoral hostage-taking, where Liberals and Liberal supporters will tell you, look, it's Scheer or Trudeau, and so it's your responsibility to vote for Trudeau. But we don't even know what the electoral map is going to look like in the election. For much of the 2011 to 2015 period, Trudeau's party sat in third. In 2011, Jack Layton sat in third until very close to the election and then had a big result in the final weeks. What the electoral map will look like in October or September is very difficult to predict. And so Liberals going out and saying to people, already, there is no alternative but us, is an attempt to distort the electoral process. To get people to stop actually thinking about the policies and ideologies and visions on offer, and to just go mark that Liberal box because that's the only thing that'll save you from conservative chaos. But of course we know that even if you are a strategic voter, our system doesn't work like that. Voting's done on a riding-by-riding basis, so there are many ridings where the Liberals aren't one of the two biggest parties. And there are many ridings where the Liberals are not competing with Conservatives but with New Democrats. And like I said, there's ridings where the Conservatives and the NDP are the two main challengers, and the Liberals might be the vote splitter. So if you want to actually strategically vote, this narrative from Justin Trudeau is a broken one. If you're a true strategic voter, you go riding by riding. You don't listen to the leader of a national party saying, if you're in a downtown Toronto riding, mark Liberal to stop Conservatives, because if the Liberals don't win that riding, odds are the New Democrats will. And if you're a true strategic voter, if you're a true anything but conservative ABC voter, again, I disagree with that worldview, but I'm not going to, tell you that you have to vote with a certain mindset. But if you are an ABC voter, I have to think that a Liberal majority government doesn't actually serve your interests. If you're a true ABC voter and you want real progress, but you're scared of the Conservatives, Liberal majorities are bad. Because when Liberals have majorities, they are no longer accountable to their voters. They're not accountable to the broad anything but conservative base that actually put them into power. The Green and NDP voters, who are sympathetic to them, or the people who often vote Liberal, but, are always at least intrigued by Green and NDP policy, they are shut out. And the Liberals will make policy for who really matters to them, the social and economic and cultural elite of the country. When Liberals are in minority governments, however, they're not perfect, but some of the greatest things Canada has accomplished came under minority governments, like our national Medicare system. That came under a minority government because the Liberals were held accountable by the New Democrats, by the NDP. So if I'm a strategic anything but conservative voter, one, I wouldn't decide who the ABC party is yet because we don't know. A few weeks out of the election in 2015, it looked like it was going to be Tom Mulcair and the NDP, and then it quickly switched to Justin and the Liberals. But we don't know what it's going to be. And further to that, a truly strategic approach is to ensure that neither the Conservatives nor the Liberals form a majority government. That should be the goal. Because if you do that, you, one, give a potential option for the NDP and Liberals and Greens, or a combination thereof, to form a coalition government, and two, by stopping the Conservatives from reaching a majority, you stop their worst policies from happening, and two, you leave the open possibility that smaller parties could team up and form government. Conservatives might decry that, but as I've noted on this channel, the party with the most seats does not have the God-given right to govern. They often in history have governed, but they're not given the God-based divine right to rule. While the other parties, even though they add up to more seats, have to sit there and take it. We've seen, for all the limitations, we've seen a good example of this in British Columbia, where Greens and New Democrats united against the BC Liberals, even though the BC Liberals were the biggest party. And they formed a solid coalition, where neither party is 100% happy about the vision being put forward, but where there's broad agreement and there's a recognition that this is better than what would be happening if the BC Liberals were in charge. That can happen, but it can only happen if neither the Conservatives nor Liberals get 170, 171 seats. That's around where the majority happens. That's the threshold. So even if you are a strategic voter, Justin Trudeau's mandate doesn't work. But it's about more than that. It's really about Justin Trudeau trying to cynically distort the nature of our political system. Justin Trudeau promised 1,800 times, he and his party did, to end our first-past-the-post system. And whether it was through ranked ballots, which again only his party really supported, or whether he would have done the right thing and implemented a proportional system, we would have forever ended this situation where the Liberal Party can fearmonger about a 35-40% Conservative result, giving 100% of the power. But the Liberals, in preserving first-past-the-post, preserved that razor's edge reality we always live on in Canadian politics. That it only takes a couple more points for the Conservatives to win. It was the Liberals that preserved that system. The Liberals did this in such a cynical way. When Justin Trudeau rejected the idea of proportional representation, he said that we cannot have a system that gives the radical right power. And proportional systems will do that. And now he's going to people, and Liberal MPs and Liberals on social media are going to people and saying, Andrew Scheer is a radical conservative, and under our system, he could win absolute power. So what is it? Is it first past the post that protects us from the radical right? Or is it the system that gives the radical right a chance at a 5-year dictatorship with 40% of the vote? We all know it's the latter, but Justin Trudeau wants to have it both ways. First past the post is a dangerous system during elections because, saying so helps him win, but it's the safe system when he's talking about electoral reform because he actually doesn't want to reform the system. Because here's the truth. Here's where we cut to the kernel. The Liberals would rather see periodic Conservative absolute majorities than actually share power with the New Democrats and Greens and others from time to time. Justin Trudeau and his party are more comfortable with Andrew Scheer having 100% of the power for 4 or 5 years than a system where, more often than not, the Liberals would have to share power with the NDP and Greens. Because the Liberals are actually more afraid of us moving in a truly progressive direction than they are of conservative cuts and austerity. Because the elite Liberals, the people who don't necessarily just vote Liberal, but the people who are heading up that party, the MPs and the people who bankroll that party, they'll be fine either way. Big conservative cuts to healthcare and education, there's private schools, and there's the ability to travel to other countries and buy your healthcare. They can shelter themselves from the consequences of conservative government in a way that the average Liberal or Green or NDP voter can't. So they're not that afraid of conservative governance. And it also allows them to look like a good guy, because when a conservative government comes in and rolls things back, the Liberals can look like a good guy, look like a progressive, simply for moving us a little bit the ways back towards progress. Not even all the way. So it's a veritable good cop, bad cop routine. And the Liberals get to be the good cop, and the Conservatives are the bad cop, but the system only works like that because of the way in which we elect our politicians, which was a broken system, the first past the post electoral method. And again, this is also crucial because the liberals and conservatives aren't really against one another. Certainly, they don't like one another, their voters. Justin Trudeau's voters do not like Andrew Scheer. And I know the feeling is mutual for Andrew Scheer's supporters. But in provinces like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and BC, where the NDP or the CCF before it, or the combination, the CCF-NDP, has demonstrated strength, you've seen liberal conservative unity against the NDP because when push comes to shove, liberals and Tories have the same broad vision against a genuine progressive vision. This is why the Sask Party exists. This is why the BC Liberals exist. And to a lesser degree, this is why the Manitoba PCs exist, with the Manitoba Liberals being very small, because most liberals, most elite liberals will back the PCs over the NDP in Manitoba. And this is why Trudeau doesn't want electoral reform. Because the system guarantees that no matter what, the 1% is in power. And they're in almost always full power. And we have relatively few minority governments where NDP forces can actually dictate, our policy direction. And in those brief moments, we got some great stuff done, like Medicare. But those moments come too far between because of our system. And this ties into what's happening in federal politics right now. It's the liberals and conservatives uniting against the NDP when they stood for the charter rights of workers. It's liberals and conservatives that united against the NDP when they wanted to build more housing in Indigenous communities. It was liberals and conservatives uniting against the NDP when the NDP put forward a motion to put workers before CEO bonuses during bankruptcy proceedings. And it was the liberals and conservatives that united against the NDP when the NDP was criticizing the reality that Trump's America is not safe for the refugees and that we should cancel the Safe Third Country Agreement. And so the Liberal Party, who promised to fix our electoral system and noted the flaws in that system, and then are now using the flaws of that system to justify, one, why they didn't change the system, and then two, why you have to vote for them under that broken system that they acknowledged as broken, using again those same flaws as the justification. Why should we trust them? Why should progressives continue to be hostages? Why should we be hostages of a party that actually doesn't respect the vision you want to implement? And that will get that majority and then trash as much of it as it possibly can. And then come back to you in 4 years and promise the same things again like they never did before. And an example being how the Liberals broke multiple promises to Indigenous people, and they say they'll actually keep them this time. It's shameful. And the fact that Canadians keep voting for the Liberal Party shows that they think themselves hostages. But you don't have to act like that. You can reject the Liberal Party. You can reject that system. You can reject the duopoly. You can reject the good cop, bad cop routine. And you can vote for progressive change. Canadian progressives have great ideas. And they have great vision. And they, I think, even if some of them vote Liberal more often than not, they have a genuine desire to see our society become a better place. But their party doesn't. And that's the problem. Remember this as you get bashed over the head repeatedly that if you don't vote for the Liberals, it's your fault Andrew Scheer wins. I'll say one thing. If Andrew Scheer forms a majority government with 38 or 39 points, there's two people you can blame. Two broad camps. One, the people who actually voted for Andrew Scheer. And then two, the Liberal Party that preserved our broken system. Because make no mistake, if it's not this time, it'll happen that the Conservatives form absolute power with a minority of the votes. And it'll be the Liberal Party that blames Green and NDP and Bloc voters, but it'll be their fault and no one else's. So guys, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe. And also consider supporting me on Patreon. Doing any or all of those things helps to improve the quality and quantity of content on this channel. And it helps to let people know that on YouTube and beyond, there's a vision, a different vision for Canada that isn't based on fear or on cynicism or on lying to voters, but rather based on a genuine and sincere desire to build a progressive nation. And that if we support content like this, then that message can go farther and be read more deeply by people. and can be offered to challenge narratives both here on YouTube and in the mainstream media. So guys, I hope you have a great one, and I'll see you in the next video.